Thank you and welcome. It's good to see everyone tonight. Thank you to Jumper for bringing me and letting me present my research tonight. I just want to, before I start, say that all the names that I'm going to mention, all the participants are pseudonyms for the research I'm presenting tonight. So as Jumper said, my name is Dr. Kerry, and I'm a lecturer in sociology at Charles Darwin University. Charles Darwin University is based in the northern capital of Darwin in Australia, but I live in Melbourne, down in the cold south. I would like to first acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I live and work, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So in 2019, I started this current research project on the lives of LGBTQI plus Buddhist Australians. And I came to do this research as a genderqueer, non-binary Zen Buddhist because I was curious to learn what were other people's experiences. At the time, living in Darwin, there were a few other queer people involved with the Zen group that I was involved with at the time, but we didn't really get a chance to really talk about our experiences as queer Buddhists. So in 2020, I surveyed 82 LGBTQI plus Buddhist Australians, and I presented the results of that survey at the first International Queer Buddhist Conference. These results can also be seen in the Rainbodies booklet, which I'll see. There you go, you can see it now, which you can see online, and it's in multiple languages as well. And since doing that survey, I've now conducted in-depth interviews with 29 LGBTQI plus Buddhist Australians. And I'm yet to really analyze these interviews thoroughly, but today I'm going to present some or two preliminary observations from just doing the interview so far. The first will be looking at how lay and monastic LGBTQI plus Buddhists are encouraged to lie about their queerness out of fear of being denied access to ordination. And second, talk about trans and non-binary Buddhists and how they face barriers when it comes to attending meditation retreats, as well as accessing ordination. So the two key findings of the original online survey included that 1 in 6 LGBTQI plus Buddhist Australians have been told that being queer was not in keeping with the Buddha's teachings, and more than half were actually reluctant to come out to their Buddhist communities. And these themes appear to impact the monastics and the lay Buddhist priests that I have spoken with. While these individuals are actually out, there have been times when they've been encouraged to keep being queer a secret. More significantly, it is inferred that being queer actually prohibits people from going through ordination. The Honourable Daiji, a queer man who is a monastic I have spoken with, told me that he had been approached by a woman when he lived in a monastery, and she had said to him, "Are you gay? Then you can't ordain. You can't be a monk." He quickly learned that this was not the case, but he goes on to say, "It was one of those powerfully scary moments." He recalls how there were others, as he says, advising me just to lie. When discussing this further, he reflected on a time at the monastery. There was a lot of pressure not to identify with my sexuality and abandon it, to pretend it wasn't there, to let go of it, which of course no one else seemed to do that with that work with their sexuality. Another monastic I've spoken with, the Honourable Atid, told me about an incident that occurred before he was ordained. A friend of his, a Western monk, had asked him if he could stay at the temple. The Honourable Adid approached the head monk at the temple at that time, but the head of the temple had said that his friend couldn't stay because he doesn't have a lineage. And then he said, "Oh, he's a homosexual." The Honourable Atid's response was almost one of relief, because he thought to himself, "Oh, thanks for saying that, because I'm not going to tell you about myself now." In the online survey, Helen, a pansexual trans woman, describes the monastery she visits as a male institution. And she goes on to say, the monastery permits homophobia and transphobia within its structure. And quite a few monastics, including the most senior monks, are that way, albeit in diluted forms. They are to some degree out of touch with our issues, and being males resist change that could threaten their beliefs, their comfort zone, and the structure of the monastery. I've learned just because someone is wearing monks' or nuns' robes doesn't necessarily mean that they are an angel. The judgments of phobias do not disappear because of ordination. They only do because he or she sees the need to change. So these views are not limited to the monastic setting. In Australia, there are many lay traditions that offer people ordination, and these views exist here as well. A lay Buddhist priest I've spoken with, Daiden, a gay man, was also told to keep his sexuality a secret. He was advised, just don't say anything about your sexuality. If somebody asks, of course, you're not going to lie, but just don't say anything about it. He adds that when he is asked if he has a partner, he says no and says, this is lying, I guess, because I do have a partner. When Helen mentioned before says monastics are out of touch with our issues, this also refers to those times when LGBTQI plus Buddhists do come out. For example, when Annie, a pansexual trans woman, came out to her teacher as trans, she says, he gave me an hour-and-a-half lecture. I just sat there and just quietly let it zip past the keeper. Because you have absolute respect for your teacher. That is something that Tibetan Buddhism says that you must have. What is striking about Annie's experience is she says, the first part of the lecture was the evils of gay sex. This is despite the fact that Annie actually had stressed that she's not gay. It's too simplistic to suggest that monastics and monasteries are out of touch with our issues because they are non-Western individuals or institutions. I say this because some people I've spoken with have shared with me their difficulties when accessing Western ordination as well. For example, within the Triratna tradition, ordination is segregated into men's ordination and women's ordination. I do see this as somewhat ironic, considering that Triratna was founded by a gay man in the 1960s. Ash, a genderqueer queer person, shared their journey of becoming a mitra or friend in the Triratna tradition. They told me, it's been a process of trying to work out if I could be within this community authentically. When they first approached, their response was, when they were first approached, their response was, look, I don't know how I'm going to fit. I don't know how that's going to work. But Ash was really supported by members of the tradition, and they told me, I'm lucky because I've had those very strong connections already with people that I feel confident. Mostly I can feel comfortable and confident about it. This environment means that while Ash attends the women's retreats, they say, I can be really clear with the people I'm on retreat with about my gender or lack of. That's respected for the most part. Most people are actually really caring, really supportive, and try really hard with pronouns. Ash tells me that, and I quote here, there's been a few hiccups that were mainly based on bureaucracy rather than the people. So while navigating these issues, Ash's openness with their Sangha has resulted in an opportunity to discuss gender and to discuss gender diversity. And they reflected on this further with me. And they say, I've had lots of really interesting, engaging conversation with people that have allowed more discussion to have within the community and different things to come up, which has helped other people with their practice and to explore their ideas of conditionality and how they are. And that's been really great. Outside of the context of ordination, Lowen, a genderqueer trans woman, has described their relationship with Triratna as challenging from the perspective of being queer. I asked Lowen to elaborate on why it is challenging, and they responded by saying, they have a binary way of teaching and studying the community. That's not to say that there's not mixed events, but there's a men's and a women's wing, which I think for where I'm at in my transition, and I'm sure for anyone else who doesn't fit into that, I'm finding it quite hard to just rest in needing to categorize myself. Although Lowen describes it as pretty uncomfortable at the moment, they are hopeful that things will change. And like Ash, they have great support within their community. So what I've discussed today is just a small part of what people have to say. I still have a few more people to interview over the next couple of months, but it's safe to say that it's not really one experience which all 29 the LGBTQI+ Buddhist Australians share. They, and I will say we, are all very different. Overall, though, I do think having a community of queer Buddhists helps. Many people did say that they don't have the chance to talk about these sort of issues of being queer, being a queer Buddhist with anyone else. And I include myself in this too. That is why organizations like Rainbody and conferences like this are really important, not just to participants, but also to me personally. Thank you.